way. And let's hear it for Don Coscarelli. Thank you for being here. This has just been a total blast. We were asking the audience earlier. There are several people in here who have never seen Phantasm, so it's going to be a fun experience for them. But I wanted just to chat. You guys all had a moment to meet Don and get a picture, but I wanted to ask you just a couple of questions. The book is fantastic. It covers this kind of odyssey you've been on for the past 40-odd years. 40-odd years, yeah. But one of the things that I found so fascinating was that that early career kind of switch, right? So you have these two films that come out with, 3-year period basically. And then everything kind of changes with Phantasm, right? But the first two films, you have a comedy, and how would you describe the two films?
A melodrama.
Yeah, melodrama.
Kitty and Company is awesome. I love Kitty and
All right,
Company.
thank you. Best friend.
But you're this kid, you're late in your late teens basically, and you're thrust into this world where you're at Universal. A gentleman named Sid Sheinberg kind of takes you under his wing. Who was Sid Sheinberg, by the way? Can you kind of tell us who this guy was?
Well, Sid Sheinberg was one of the most powerful people in Hollywood, and he, we had made this movie independently down in my hometown of Long Beach, and there were, on a very tight budget, with friends and student filmmakers. And my father, my neighborhood friend, and I co-directed the movie, and we had talked my father into putting a little money into this. And as the movie went on, and he saw that we were not totally in control of what was happening, he started to get worried, and he would call the LA Times film critic, and this was back in the day when the film critics would pick up their own telephone. And he goes, "My kid's making this movie, we're going to lose all the money, what do we do?" And he finally, he said, "I'll come and look at it," and he offered to come. And so the critic came out and watched the movie, and seemed to like it, but wasn't crazy about it. And then literally a week later, he called up and said, I had lunch with the president of Universal Studios, and he wants to see your movie." So we shipped it over to this man's Beverly Hills mansion for he and his family to watch, and they liked the movie and bought the film, and my dad got all his money back, all the crew got paid. It was like a Cinderella story. And my friend Craig and I quickly were up at Universal finishing Jim the World's Greatest. We shot some scenes and re-edited the movie, and we had our own office on the lot of Universal Pictures. And I was 19 years old. It was awesome because we were still sort of teenagers, so on weekends, we could get like inexpensive tickets, like face value tickets. People like David Bowie would play at the Universal Amphitheater, so we had a line on tickets. We could invite our friends up. We had parties in our little office. The studio guards would go around, but nobody else had parties because they were like teenagers, but they were cool about it, and so it was just this. And then at the same time, we're learning and seeing, and Universal was this massive studio, and cranking out stuff. And we finished our film there, and this was one of the cool things about writing the book, was that I was able to remember some of those times that I had completely forgotten about. It was something that never happened.
I meant to ask you, have you been on
one more thing I just want to say. Yeah. So the movie didn't gross well. Universal decided that their office was too valuable and was like implied, don't let the door hit you on the way out. So we left our office, and I've never had an office on a studio lot since. So now I really appreciate that.
There's a lot of detail in the book, and I just wondered, did you ever keep any kind of notes, diary? Like, what did you go back to besides just your memory to gather all of this? There's a lot here.
It's mostly just memory. I did go back to some of my collaborators on the movies and talked about what we had done. Some of them triggered some memories, but it might have been the first draft of it came out maybe a little too negative and bitter because I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I tend to remember the failures and the people that crossed me more than the good things. So I ended up cutting a lot of that stuff out because I wanted to make it a little more positive.
So when you're a kid and you have that kind of moment there at Universal, I mean, that's the mid-'70s, a lot of those kind of old-school filmmakers were still cranking out movies, like Alfred Hitchcock was still around at the time. Were you kind of bumping into some of these kind of iconic people?
Hitchcock had his own building. I never got to see him, unfortunately. And there's a little through plot there because the other major filmmaker that Sid Sheinberg championed was this other guy named Steven Spielberg. And they kept saying, you need to meet Spielberg. But he was like always off, like working in other, meet Spielberg, he's down in Texas, And then it was like, well, you got to meet Spielberg. And then I go, oh yeah, we'd like to. Oh, no, he's filming the shark movie. We never did meet him.
So when did you first, I mean, like you said, you've been doing this for a while. When did the idea first come to write a book at all? I'm sure people have asked you to do it before. I'm sure it's been on the table. Why now?
A couple of reasons. Number one was I had gotten friendly with the publisher at St. Martin's Press, and he was handling, because they were handling John Dies at the End, the author David Wong. Have anybody read any David Wong books in here? Yeah, he's great. So he wrote John Dies at the End, and then he wrote the sequel to that. This book is full of spiders. Seriously, dude, don't touch it, which is a really wonderful book. And then the third installment is out now called What the Hell Did I Just Read? So he's great with titles and great with books. But anyway, so I was working with them to help publicize during John Dies. And then he was also having great success with the memoirs from Bruce Campbell. So he thought that, that maybe I could do something. And also, truthfully, I wanted to put this all down on paper or something. I didn't know if I could. It was really more of a loose idea. Well, I said, yeah, I'll do one. Let me, write 5 or 8 chapters and see if it, if it's readable or not. And so that was an interesting experience. But right when I was starting that, all these friends and directors started dying, and sequence horror directors, and it galvanized me in a way because I was thinking, wow, I knew George Romero. Would I have loved to read a memoir by him, and I'm not equating myself to that. And same with Tobe Hooper, and none of those guys had written memoirs for some reason, so I thought, well, I better do it while I'm a little younger.
So, we always hear now that now it's easier to make movies than ever. People have a movie studio in their pocket with their phone.
Yeah, that's true.
But your story still seems so unique. And I guess my question is, it was certainly harder back then. What about you made you possible? Was it just raw ambition? How did you kind of become, the person that would kind of not take no for an answer? And, the whole spirit of this book, this true indie, is saying you're going to do it some way or another. You've faced, like you said, so much obstacle along the way. How are you? Deep question.
Look, I mean, we need to get a psychiatrist here to answer that question. I don't know. I would say that I do have an innate ability where I tend to be like a bumper car, as I mentioned in the book. I run into an obstacle. I don't want to give up, but I don't always challenge and take people on about it. I do sometimes, but I tend to bump and go around and try to look for a way to do it. And one of the ways that I've compensated always on this is by figuring out how to make films on a really tight budget. Because most of the problems that you run into are not having enough resources to make a movie. And so, it'd be like I'd create a project and think, oh, I'd love to make this, and I need, $900,000 at the minimum. And then everybody says no, and then I could maybe get $200,000. Well, how can I make it for $200 and figure out a way to do it?
So, everybody says necessity is the mother of invention, and you'll hear a lot of times people who are indie auteurs, they'll say, there's benefit to budgetary restriction, meaning, you have to find a way to do this, it forces you to be creative in a way that if you had everything at your disposal, your mind would work differently. Do you think that that is actually true? Has having to kind of always look for the way to get things done sharpen certain tools in your toolbox?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, because you're always distilling it down to just exactly what you need and nothing more, because you can't afford the more. And so it causes you to critically examine and break down into parts any particular challenge. And, as you were framing the question, I thought you were going to say, well, what would you do if you had unlimited money to make something? And I was already formulating an answer, which is I would be totally flummoxed. Like, it's almost frightening to think of having unlimited resources, because I don't know. But in any case,
yeah. So just to wrap up, I know we want to jump into the movie, but you probably spent a fair amount of time working on the book. You're out talking about it now. How is this impacting your filmmaking career? What are you doing now? What are you working on now? What should we be looking for?
Right now, I'm not doing anything other than talking about this book for the last couple months, and then writing the book and other things. But no, I definitely have plans to do more films, and certainly, there's been a gigantic change in the movie business, and especially in the television business, which is where all the money has migrated into that world. And so it's much easier now it seems, to find funding to do the 10-episode type format for a streaming service or a network or whatever. So I've been working on a couple of different projects in that direction, and hopefully 2019, I'll get one of those things going, is my plan. Yeah, that's the goal.
So last question. Your daughter is an amazing vegan chef.
Well, thank you for bringing
Yeah, she's great.
I'm very proud of her.
Yeah, she's got a fantastic cookbook. And
do you really?
Yeah, she's great. She's great. My wife owns a bakery here in town. We're big fans of hers. And so, but my question is this. Did she end up going that route because of all the horrible imagery that you subjected her to as a child?
There was a critical moment there where she might have gone into movies, because, we had these little characters in the Phantasm movies, which in the 70s we were calling them dwarves, which was terribly politically incorrect. But now they're dwarf creatures is what they always were. And which is what I really love about Phantasm Part 5, because we have this wonderful actor who comes in and just, finally, his name's Stephen Jutras, and he's so fantastic in it. He plays this, he was a little person, smaller actor, and he just kicks Reggie's ass throughout the film. So, but we would always, to play those characters, we would always, it was like every set of movies, we would try to find some children who could play these parts in the robes and run around. So, my daughter played them in Phantasm Oblivion, and one night she played the creature, she played 3 separate creatures, and each one was horribly killed by Reggie. Like one, she got a switchblade to the neck, and the other one, she got a 4-barrel shotgun to the face, and the last one was a 45 right in the mouth shot. And, we didn't really actually do them with her. We would, fake it up and then do it. But she just loved the attention. Everyone was like, oh, do you need something to drink, Chloe? And after she said, should I get an agent? This is fun. And luckily we were able to dissuade her, and she went into the culinary world and has done so well. Her name is chefchloe.com if you want to ever check out her website.
Great Instagram page. Okay, so we want to give away 2 copies of Phantasm 4, and we're going to do some trivia. So we asked Don to come up with some interesting questions. So we're going to ask it. You can raise your hand, and I'll call on you. And if you get it wrong, we'll move on to the next person. But David, our friend here, let's give it a shout out for David. And David runs the Baker. So Don, let's hear question number 1.
Okay, let's go with a hard one first. Any hardcore Phantasm fans who've watched all 5 movies in the audience? Yes, there are a number. Okay. All right, here we go. There's a song in Phantasm 1 where a daring young filmmaker stopped a horror movie cold and his two stars, Reggie and Jody, sing a song. Who here can sing the first two bars? Come on.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm sitting here at midnight. Well, I don't know the song well enough to sing the bars of it, but I'm just sitting here at midnight.
Yes.
I don't. That's
Okay, that you
That's
guys
pretty
go
good.
yeah. Well, if that's all I had to do, I could have done that one.
Are we ramping it up for the second question?
I've got another really obscure one.
Thank you.
And then if nobody gets that one, then I'll go to a more normal one so other people have chances. Okay, we were talking about political correctness on Phantasm earlier. And Phantasm is not politically correct in a couple certain areas. And in one line, we say, oh, that little blank kid up the street. And what was his name?
Oh, his name. Yeah.
And I met two of you with his name. Okay.
You can't win, but do you
Does
know
anybody
that?
know? Does anybody have it? Is it Tammy?
Yes. Okay, where are the tubes in here? I know they're in your gas. Yeah, you guys should have got them.
All right, that's okay.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Another good Phantasm trivia question. Okay, I guess we'll just keep it simple. Okay, we'll raise hands, and then you're going to pick who it is.
All right.
All right. The brothers drive a car in Phantasm made by what manufacturer?
Go ahead.
Winner, come on down. All right.
All right, so first, thank you for that. Those DVDs were provided by Don. And also, Don gave us, of course, the permission and rights to show this film tonight. Yeah, thank you for that.
I literally feel like I know every one of you.
We want to say a big thanks to Don for being here. Thank you guys for joining us tonight, and enjoy the film. Thanks,
Yeah,
everybody.
enjoy. Thank you.